We turn to a video by Greg Carr, who is the philanthropist behind this work. This Idaho Listens has been funded by Greg. He brought this initiative to us. We'll say a little bit more about Greg's involvement in a moment, but he also recorded a video describing some of his love for Idaho and the inspiration for this event. So please turn your attention to the video monitors, and we'll have some words from Greg Carr.
Hi, everybody. I'm enthused for the launch of Idaho Listens. And thank you, Boise State University. Today I'm going to talk about my hero, my mentor, my role model, my mom, Betty Olson Carr. My mother turned 100 on August 2nd, 2022. Her family, her parents came to Idaho in 1910. Got a little farm near Kimberly. She grew up there. So we're going on 110 years now. Our family loving this state. We like Idaho. We like the people. Now, I think my mother embodies the spirit of Idaho Listens. She has what we would all call traditional values: hard work, integrity, help a neighbor, sacrifice for a bigger cause. But on top of that, my mother has curiosity. She loves to learn. She's always reading. She likes to meet new people. She likes conversation. We had all kinds of different folks in our neighborhood, up and down South Holmes Road in Idaho Falls. Different people. My mom liked all of them. She was friends with all of them. My mother didn't believe that you had to agree with someone on every single political point or philosophical idea or lifestyle in order to be their friend, in order to like them. In fact, she took it a step further. If she was in a room of people and somebody said something that wasn't entirely positive about somebody else, she would always say, well, but you know, so-and-so has this good quality. Now, isn't that really the highest aspiration for being a human being, that we can find kindness and compassion for everyone? Now, our neighborhood was vibrant because we had all these different ideas. And why is that a good thing? Why would it be a good thing for Idaho to have an entire mix of people with different views and notions? Well, it means we have that many more solutions available to us as we face a challenge. The United States of America has been the most innovative nation on earth, decade after decade after decade. And why is that? Because we are a collection of people from the entire world that gathered in our country, all of them bringing their different ideas, their different skills, their different solutions to problems, their languages. It's a mashup of creativity that leads to invention, that leads to resilience. There's an example that I enjoy thinking about on the benefits of diversity. And it's the English language itself. People say that English has more than 1 million words in it. Probably more than any other language on earth. How did that happen? Well, the people who spoke English were exploring the whole world. They were curious. They were learning. They were gathering ideas. They were incorporating words, new ways to think about things. I'll use an example. My mom, Betty, is pretty. Now, how many different words can I find in the English language to express the concept of pretty? Well, there'd be hundreds. Now, pretty itself is actually a word that came from Dutch into Middle English many centuries ago. But how else can we describe Betty? She's gorgeous, she's lovely, she's pleasing, she's alluring, she's charming, she's dazzling, she's elegant, she's exquisite, stunning, for sure. She's splendid, she's resplendent, she's angelic, for sure. She's radiant. My mom is pulchritudinous. Okay, I don't really use the word pulchritudinous in my everyday life, but it's from Latin, and it actually means the most beautiful. All right. So what does this mean that we have such a huge vocabulary in English? It means that when we want to express an idea, we can do so with more precision, with more refinement, with more nuance. It's a blessing. So Idaho listens. We're going to hear from a dozen different people today. I hope they all have vastly different stories to tell. How boring would it be if they all said the same thing and thought the exact same thought? Okay? Everybody's going to be sound asleep in the audience. How boring would my neighborhood have been where I grew up if everybody robotically was repeating the same sentences? What chance would I have had to learn, to expand my mind, to expand my awareness, to imagine what it might be like to be a different human being? Well, I think the evidence is there that my mom's choice of lifestyle and kindness must be a healthy way to live. Because not only did she cross 100, on her 100th birthday, she played pickleball. So let's launch Idaho Listens today. Let's get to know each other. And beyond today, let's keep doing it. And build a fabric of friendship in our state.
So you can clap now, but then we're not going to let you clap in a little bit. I love the way that Greg talks about the fabric of friendship. And Caldwell, Idaho marks the fourth stop on our fabric of friendship as we've taken Idaho Listens from Boise to Idaho Falls to Coeur d'Alene to now Caldwell, and then who knows where we're going to go next. It's really his vision to continue these conversations across communities and across the state. And it's an experiment of sorts. It's still an experiment after several times conducting Idaho Listens. And why do I say that? We have 9 speakers from all walks of life who didn't really know one another, don't know you necessarily, speaking about what they value to an audience that remains silent. Easy, nothing to it. Really, imagine their strength and the risk they're taking. I'm calling them up. They've never met me, that's assured, to ask them if they would speak to largely an audience of strangers about what they value and why. And every single one of them said yes. Now, when we began this program, the question I received most often about Idaho Listens was, how will you get the audience to stay silent? I said, I'll politely ask them to remain silent. And from that first program until now, we have not had any interruptions of the silence. Now, in a way, you're all familiar with this convention. It's the hold your applause until all have spoken or been awarded. That's really what we're asking for here. Still, there's a novel quality to the spirit of Idaho Listens. And one of Greg's comments early in our conversations about this, he said, what I'm really interested in creating is an atmosphere of reverent listening. Reverent listening. So yes, we are here today to listen and to do so silently. But we will not stop a smile, a nod, a tear, but please do listen without sound and do so reverently, whether in agreement or disagreement with what's being said. And we expect that you will have something that you might disagree with and something you might agree with. But that's the whole point of the fabric of friendship, relationship, and the humanization of different ideas. So please do so listen with reverence to our speakers. I want to say another word about the courage of our speakers. They're here to share a slice of their lives and their values. They couldn't possibly articulate the full scope of their stories or their values in 5 to 7 minutes, which is the time limit we gave each of them. They speak their stories into silence. They speak for themselves. We don't provide their biographies. They simply speak for themselves. So, let's give them an incredibly warm round of applause before we get started right now. And as a reminder, you'll see why we have our silent rules. They're printed in your program. So if you need a reminder, just flip it and there it'll be. So I've got a few announcements and then we'll get right to it. You'll notice in your program that it outlines the order of the speakers. We'll have a first set of speakers that are gathered up here, followed by a break, so that you can use the restrooms, which are over here. You can shake out, you can make noise. We'll have a short break, but please do return to your seats promptly after the break. Probably be 5 to 7 minutes or so, and I will remind you of that. And then after the first session, we'll bring up our second set of speakers. And then dinner will follow. Dinner will be served across this wonderful venue. And Greg's vision, part 2 of Greg's vision, is that he wanted it to be family style because it would force interaction with one another, as in pass the Brussels sprouts. Now, a few words of thanks. Nancy Buffington, who is a speaker coach. Nancy, wave to us, please. Nancy has been a key partner on this project from the beginning. She has helped with our speakers as they hone and craft their stories. Their stories are their own, but we wanted them to feel supported. We didn't want to just say, hey, would you speak about what you value and why? End of. We wanted to provide support, and Nancy has done a wonderful job of that work. I also want to thank Jean Mucci, who helped connect me to several members of this community, as well as Ramon Silva, also helped me connect to members of this community to find our speakers. I also want to thank Senator Mike Craple's office. When we first set course on this Idaho Listens experiment, Senator Craple's office was a key partner in helping us think through and giving us some input from a conservative perspective. And today somewhere we have Marissa Morrison from the Boise office representing, there she is, she waved, representing Senator Craple and his team. The Institute has faculty fellows, has undergraduate fellows, has a faculty advisory committee, and an external advisory board. They're all here. They can all wave, or lots of them are here. They can all wave, and you can see that we have a number of supporters here with us tonight that do the daily work of the Institute. Idaho Public Television produced a documentary about the first Idaho Listens. You can go watch it on their website, and it's an award-winning film. And we're grateful for their partnership. I know Bill Manny, who produced that documentary, is somewhere around here too. Thank you, Bill. There he is. We have several Idaho Listen speakers from our first event, or at least 2 in Boise. Rod Carr, who's over here, and Laura Alvarez-Schrag, who's over here. Both participated as speakers in the first series. We remain in touch. I apologize to these current speakers. This is about a fabric of friendship. We're going to continue these conversations and continue to be in relationship with one another. I'm almost done. When Greg Carr brought this concept to President Trump, who I know is devastated to not be able to welcome you, you'll hear from her later, she mobilized. She mobilized a few of us on campus to really think through this idea and make Idaho Listens happen. Greg inspired the project. He challenged me. He challenges you. He challenges all of us to have Idaho Listens continue and be a driver for us to be in conversation with one another, even as we may disagree with one another. We know there are more voices to be heard from around this state, and we look forward to bringing those voices forward. Shortly, I'll bring Mari up here for the first to kick us off. But as I said, there's no formal introductions or biographies of the speakers. They will then just proceed in succession from one another. And then, as I mentioned, after the break, I'll gather everyone's attention, and George Cookham will kick us off for the second session. When Larry closes our program, I'll return to the podium. Dr. Tromp will be here. We'll invite all the speakers back, and we'll have another chance for applause and reaction.
This value, my values, my story, who I am, is because of what I've learned throughout my life and those around me. My parents, who were unlucky to have been born where there's a corrupt government, where they could only go to third grade, where they were caught in a cycle of poverty. They made the decision to risk their lives to come here so that I could have a better life. Because can you imagine being 17, pregnant, leaving the only home you've ever known, leaving your parents, your siblings, your friends, to go to a country where you know no one, where you don't speak the language, where you aren't even really wanted? Now that's a testament of a parent's love. And they struggled, but they didn't focus on the struggle. They always spoke of those that helped them. When I was a baby and I got pneumonia, my mom and I had to go and stay at the hospital. My dad at that point was deported when he was working. And when you get deported, they take everything from your home and lock it up, get it ready to rent it out to somebody else. So we were left with nothing. So when my mom and I were discharged from the hospital, we had nothing but the clothing that we had on. There was a nurse that saw how distraught my mom was and made the decision to take us in. Can you imagine the conversation she had with her husband and her kids that night? I'm taking in this stranger and this baby. And we stayed with them for almost a year. My parents, they also taught us with their actions. I slept on the living room floor for the most part of my life, of my childhood, because my parents were always taking people in. People would knock on their doors, and my parents would always help them whether they knew them or not. They would help them find jobs, help them find a place to live. They were always helping people. My mom would make big pots of food, and we would go on the weekends and drive out to the different farms, and my parents would share the little that we had with these laborers just to show them that they were not alone. And my parents didn't just help those who were the same and looked like us. I remember as a kid, our landlord was not a nice person to us. He liked the rent payment, but he made it no secret that he didn't like us. He was the first person to ever call me a wetback, even though I was born here. And even though as a kid I had no idea what that was, I also knew that it wasn't nice. Well, one night he came knocking at our door. His dog had died, and he wanted my dad to help him bury this dog. Well, my dad and I went, and I remember very clearly my dad doing the work and helping and ever so gently burying this family pet. But he also held this man and his wife and cried with them and showed them such kindness. And as a kid, I was just wondering, why was he being so kind with, this guy wouldn't let me have a dog. That's what I wanted, right? I asked my dad once, years later, why he had treated somebody so kindly that had never treated us with that same kindness. And my dad told me, he is a human. No matter our differences, he is a human, and it is the right thing to do. Now I'll tell you about my daughter. She's an amazing human. She's worked at an AIDS clinic in India. She served in the AmeriCorps, the Peace Corps for 2.5 years in Mozambique, Africa. She has done so many things in her 29 years. She asked me one day, how can I be friends with people who have such different values than us, who spread dangerous ideas about who the Hispanic community is, who view the undocumented community as takers, as political toys, and not as mothers, fathers, daughters, as sons, as humans? Well, that takes me back to my conversation with my dad. But not only are all of these people humans, they're also a product of their experiences, of what they've learned, of who is around them, what information they have taken in. And also, we all have fears and emotions that also drive our beliefs and understanding. And we all know people are being told what to fear every day. I truly believe that the only way to bridge these gaps, to build understanding, is by connecting and sharing our different experiences, not by alienating humans. It is so easy to fear what you don't know. And for example, our documented community, they can't tell their stories. So they just don't know. Because we don't know what we don't know. I do believe that I have a lot to learn from those who are different than I am. And I have a lot to learn from serving people who are different than I am. We all have different experiences and different upbringings. And I also believe that I have something of value that someone else can learn from me. You know, my son is autistic, and he also teaches me so much. His neurodiverse brain makes the lights brighter, the sounds louder, the scents stronger, and change so hard that it would be so much easier. And he asks me, why can't everybody just be the same? Why can't we all just do the same things every day, keep things predictable? But can you guys imagine that? Yes, of course, things would be easier if we were all the same. But that would be so boring, so bland. What would we even talk about? What would we even want or need to connect about if everything and everyone was the same? For there to be growth and connection, we need the differences. We need the challenges of finding those connections, finding understandings, learning new experiences. I truly believe that this is how life becomes more beautiful, and I truly believe that that is where we can find true wisdom. Thank you.
President John F. Kennedy famously said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." Military camaraderie creates a strong bond that transcends the issues we face in today's volatile political landscape. I often reflect on my time serving in the United States Army, and I can tell you wholeheartedly what a positive impact military service had on my life. In the military, I made friends with people from all different skin colors, people from many different states, and from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Military camaraderie grows into lifelong friendships because you are continually doing hard stuff together. From running 5 miles at 4 a.m. in the rain or snow, to jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, to fighting for your lives in a gun battle. All the political divisiveness, all the news media talking points, all the social media dopamine hits manipulating our youth. All the anger and political theater just fades away when you are cold and wet, or hot and dusty, hungry, sleep deprived, and in danger together. In service to your country, your skin color doesn't matter. You all become green together. You learn mission accomplishment and caring for others before self. Your worth is determined by contribution and character. I will now share a character building event. I was 24 years old, leading a platoon of 30 young men in southern Baghdad, executing 24/7 day and night combat patrols, trying to find and neutralize the enemy. We had been outside the wire for 3 days, eating MREs, sleeping in our Humvees, taking turns pulling security, filthy, dirty, out of Copenhagen, and with 120-degree average temperatures, we were all ready for a shower and some real food. After completing our mission, we finally got the call to return to base. As the ground commander, I opted to take one of 2 available routes home because explosive ordnance disposal, EOD, had just cleared that specific road. We rolled out. Hawk Mike, this is Striker 6, SP time now. Traveling at a high rate of speed in a 3 Humvee convoy in pitch black darkness with no streetlights to guide our way and our headlights turned off, we could only see through our PVS-14 monocular night vision devices, looking through a little green circle as we navigated a windy, dangerous, and poorly maintained road along the Tigris River. 2 minutes into the drive, we took a catastrophic IED hit to the driver's side of our non-up-armored Humvee. Shrapnel entered the vehicle and penetrated like Swiss cheese. My driver lost his leg, my gunner had shrapnel in his leg, my translator was scalped, and I took a blast of pieces of metal in my neck and face. I remember a large boom, smoke, sparks, fire, and my ears ringing as we flew off into a 40-foot ravine and crashed upside down, landing violently on our roof inside a giant drainage canal as the vehicle began to fill up with water and mud. It took about an hour for our platoon to find us because it was so dark. We did not have our headlights turned on, the radio was destroyed, and we had just fallen so far down the cliffside. Finally, we were pulled out of the hole, and everyone but me was evacuated to Baghdad and onto Germany via Black Hawk. That memory forever seared into my brain, above all else, the belief that I had made a mistake. I carried a lot of guilt for many years for choosing to go down that road where my teammates were badly injured. But I suppressed and ultimately harnessed those feelings and went on to return home and get out of the Army, telling myself I had checked that box and I was proud of my service to my country. I found a way to leverage the adversity and grit I learned in the military into what others have described as a superhuman work ethic. I began working in corporate America and found what I learned in the Army enabled me to find significant success. Military perspective enabled me to help many civilian coworkers as they melted down over a bad regional visit or not hitting a particular metric. And I said to them thousands of times, it's not bullets or bombs. No one's going to die today. We're selling diapers and T-shirts. I had the ability to easily overcome and adapt and outwork my peers, earning numerous promotions, and went on to pay my way through evening law school, completing my Juris Doctorate and then my MBA, while getting married, losing my dad, and raising our children with my awesome wife, Erin. We are very blessed, and we have worked hard for everything we now have, but the military values have always been the foundation of my success. Further evidence of the strong correlation between military service and success can be found by reflecting on our World War II veterans. Affectionately and appropriately called our greatest generation, they were born and raised in the Great Depression. They spent 1.5 years on a cramped ship traveling to war, only to fight in horrible conditions in Europe and the Pacific with no FaceTime, no email, and no phone calls home. They returned home stoic and patriotic, and without complaining, they went on to build our amazing country. 45% of American men, almost half the men in our country at the time, served in the military in World War II. When this generation of veterans returned home and got to work, that was a time in our country's history when America prospered and experienced phenomenal unity of purpose and explosive economic growth. Today, less than 1% of U.S. adults serve in the active duty military. Is there a correlation between less people serving in their country today, less people learning these strong patriotic core military values, and the current state of affairs in our country? Ronald Reagan said, "Freedom is never more than a generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day, we will spend our sunset years telling our children's children what it was once like in the United States when men were free."
My name is Stephanie. I was born in Ontario, Oregon, to parents that were hard of hearing. Back then, people with disabilities had to work hard to prove that they were capable to do the jobs that we take advantage. When I was 9 years old, we moved to New Orleans, Louisiana, to take care of my grandmother who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. After moving to Louisiana, my parents got divorced. My mother had the hard task of raising 3 children and to take care of her ailing mother. Once my grandmother passed away, my mother got a job making minimum wage. I watched her struggle to make sure we were provided for. I would like to think that I get my will to succeed from her. She was always a hard worker and always taught us to be strong, work hard, and never allow someone to tell you that you can't do something. My first job was working at Little Caesars. I was told that I got the job because of my smile. I made sure to learn everything I could and was able to do any position that I was allowed to do. I always loved the interactions that I would have with customers. I would have to say that my value is servicing others. I have worked office jobs, doing data entry to office management. I always wondered what it would be like to be a server at a restaurant. It looked so intimidating, being able to take many tables at a time and to remember orders and drinks. When the opportunity arose, I went to my favorite Mexican restaurant and spoke to the owner about a job. She asked if I had any experience waiting tables, and I told her I didn't, but I'm a quick learner. She offered to give me a trial. One day she came up to me and she said that she went home and told her husband she hired her first white girl. I thought that was the funniest thing, so when he came in and sat at the bar, I had to go and introduce myself as the white girl that she hired. We laughed. It wasn't very easy when I started. There were people I was working with that did not speak any English. I admired how hard they worked. They were a little cautious of me because I was not the norm. I tried to learn the other positions and was willing to help the bussers, the food runners, the dishwashers when needed. I was able to gain their trust and was able to see that they appreciated me as much as I did them. Although I was not proficient in Spanish, I learned to communicate with everyone and build relationships. One birthday, they surprised me with a large bouquet of flowers and sweet homemade treats. They really began to make me feel welcome. I went from server to becoming a manager. I loved the people I was working with and the challenges that management brought. After several years, I did decide to go back to serving because that's really what I loved doing. I have made many friendships in the last several years. Scott and Ronnie Peterson are some customers who have become good friends. They would always message me and let me know and ask if I was working and say that they were coming in. I would get their order in, have their table ready for when they got there. Unfortunately, Ronnie had some health issues, and they had to follow a strict diet. So I don't get to see them as often. But I do get to visit them at their home and go to birthday parties. I really do cherish the relationship I have with them. Another customer, we will call Ted, has some health issues. I would see him almost every week, and when he didn't show up like normal, I would worry. I got his phone number, and I text him periodically to check on him to see how he's doing. He's very special to me. We share the love of our grandchildren and love to brag about them to each other. I have 2 amazing children, an amazing daughter-in-law, 4 beautiful granddaughters, and will be expecting my first grandson in October. It wasn't easy raising them as a single mother. I moved back to Idaho when they were in 1st and 3rd grade after Hurricane Katrina, for them to be able to build relationships with their father and his family. We have had many struggles, and I may not have made the best choices throughout raising them, but that's what makes us human. That is what has made me who I am today. You learn from your mistakes, and you try to be a better person tomorrow than you were today. Thank you.
I was 19 years old, standing in a courtroom, knees trembling and feeling more vulnerable than ever before. The weight of my actions hung heavy in the air as tears streamed down the faces of my family members who were present. I was facing a 15-year prison sentence. The headlines read, "Police arrest 2 suspects in robbery." My mugshot circulated in the news and newspapers. I can't imagine the pain and embarrassment my parents felt. They risked their lives so that I would be born in this beautiful country of opportunity. They had dreams of me becoming a doctor or a lawyer. But instead, there I was, a gang member with my hands and feet shackled. I heard the prosecutor loudly and angrily label me a danger to society, a gang member, and someone who was likely to reoffend. I remember thinking, how could someone I never met be so sure of who I was? How could a 5-minute bad decision turn into a 15-year prison sentence? But in reality, that's all it takes. Sometimes people get lucky, and the dumb things they do as teenagers just become crazy stories to tell later in life at barbecues. And sometimes, people don't get lucky. Hearing what the prosecutor said, I couldn't help but question myself. Is that truly who I am? Is that how the world sees me? And despite the labels thrown my way, I knew that deep down, I was different. I was not supposed to be in that courtroom. I was meant to be that shy and intelligent kid taking notes in a college class somewhere. But unfortunately, life had other plans, and understandably so. You see, where I'm from, the shy and intelligent kid doesn't always survive. Bullets fly where I'm from. It's a war zone. And prison, well, shit. For most of us, that's the closest to a college we'll ever get. So there I was, standing in that courtroom, waiting to get sentenced. I remember the judge looking down at a big stack of papers and then back at me. I wondered to myself, what does she see? A lost cause? A menace? A kid with no hope? But instead of casting me aside, she did something incredible. She showed me compassion. She gave me a second chance. That second chance changed everything. It saved me from a fate of confinement and opened the door to a new beginning. If I had received those 15 years, I would have just gotten out last year. I wouldn't be standing here today. But I have to ask, if for whatever reason I was standing here in prison garments, with my hands and feet shackled, would you still be listening? More importantly, my beautiful 14-year-old daughter wouldn't be here either. That means no good morning, beautiful, no bedtimes, hugs and kisses, no deep conversations as I drive her to school every morning, no cheering at her games every time she scores, no nothing. None of the moments that make life worth living. Last year, I met with the judge who gave me that second chance. She shared with me that on those stacks of papers that she had in front of her on the day of my sentencing, she wrote 2 words: intelligent and leader. Somehow, that day, she looked past a 5-minute bad decision and an exterior that very likely aligned with the prosecutor's words. And because of that, I'm standing before you as an executive director of a nonprofit organization that stands on compassion and second chances. We long to live in a community where we refuse to throw people away, where we choose to stand with the pushed aside, the overlooked, and the demonized, not only when they triumph, but also when they stumble. For it is in those moments of extending our hand to the fallen that we are reaching out to a mirror image of our former selves.
In preparation for this event, I wanted to test what I truly valued. So I found a little tool that was to ask yourself 3 questions. What makes you angry? And to me, that's disrespect and condescending treatment. What stories inspire you? And to me, those are stories of selfless acts. What are the most meaningful moments in life? And to me, those are all around family. You know, we only have to turn on the TV and look at the news to see political attack ads, stories of violence, abuse, demeaning conduct all around us. And as a community, I see us growing more divided in the ability to interact respectfully and treat each other kindly and with dignity. The stance that if you don't agree with me, then you're wrong and you just don't matter. That really is an ugly presence. It's disrespectful and hurtful and divisive conduct that's in our community. I'm not a minority, and I don't claim to know the issues others face because of their gender, race, skin color, religion, or sexual orientation. But I do know what it feels like to be looked down on and treated as a second-rate person. After being sexually, physically, and emotionally abused for the first 13 years of my life, I had very low self-esteem. I was raised by a single mother. We were poor, on welfare. We didn't have material things that everyone around us had. I was invisible to many, and I was a self-elevating target for others to exploit. The impact of being abused, disrespected, and treated as less than deserving impacts me still today. And as stated, disrespect is an ugly presence in our community. So when I see or feel disrespect, dismissive and divisive behavior, it angers me. But it angers me even more when I realize that is coming from me. So I realize that, like all of us, I'm a work in progress and need to take a look in the mirror. The stories of selfless acts that inspire me about people who do things because they can, not because they have to. Those people are my heroes. Shortly after moving to Idaho and Canyon County about 16 years ago, someone anonymously paid for my meal in a drive-thru. That simple act had a profound effect on me. It changed my attitude that day. I was having a bad day, I was a little cranky, but it also revitalized an internal drive in me to do things for others because I can, not because I have to. I enjoy paying that small act forward as often as possible, and I hope that ripple effect continues. There have been other people in my life who have had a positive impact. People who have done things for me, took action when they saw someone struggling, and they didn't need to. There's also been people in my life that were in positions that should have done something, that should have seen something, saw a child being abused, and chose to look the other way and do nothing. They also inspire me to not be like that. I value personal freedom, but never at the expense of safety, respect, and the dignity of others. Conservative economic policies are important to me, but socially responsible policies are imperative to me. I deeply value education and the opportunities education can provide. I have several degrees that all came in non-traditional ways. Having barely graduated high school, college was difficult mentally and financially, and it came at different times in my life. Higher education has definitely not made me a better person, but it has opened doors for me and my family, opportunities that many people don't have and have not had. So access to educational opportunities for everyone is important to me. One of the greatest influences in my life was my maternal grandfather. He worked as a janitor, but he was always the richest man in the world to me. He taught me hard work, dedication to family, and the importance of doing things for others. But most importantly, Delbert showed me that despite what had happened to me, sorry, stupid allergies, I was still in control of my life. And I hope to be that example to my kids that he was to me. And this leads me to the value of family. I have 5 kids, 4 grandkids, and they're all awesome. But they're also all sources of stress for me and my wife. The most meaningful moments in life include watching our kids and grandkids navigate the difficulties in life, get a promotion, fight a terrible disease, be part of something bigger than themselves, show kindness to someone, love each other, become amazing parents, and make a difference in the world. That is what is truly meaningful. And in closing, the last value I hold dear is Rocky Road ice cream. To me, Rocky Road incorporates all the values I've talked about. It was a gift I received of kindness, compassion, and unconditional love when I didn't deserve it. I was mean, angry, and a 13-year-old acting out. But my stepmother saw me and not the behavior. That act was an act of selflessness and dignity for others that I try to emulate. Thank you.
I value self-improvement, and I'm here to talk about my biased issues. My bias comes in several forms: a predisposed state of mind, conveniently putting people into boxes, and the dreaded confirmation bias, where everything that goes against my beliefs is dispelled without hesitation. One of my first memorable experiences was the winter of 1983. I was attending a gathering at the University of Idaho. Go Vandals, where you at, Andrew? I was with a couple of fellow students. We were second-year psych students, and we thought we had the experience that we could evaluate people. After all, is that not the value of psychology, one of the allures? To have like ESP abilities? So we spotted a female student over in the corner. She had her arms crossed, had a displeased look on her face, and we decided that we were going to try to evaluate what she was thinking. Jim started it off and said, "I think she's full of herself." Bob followed up with, she's either not happy with the gathering or somebody at the party. I was in full agreement and very proud of how we had assessed this individual sitting across the room. Short period later, we came to the obvious conclusion. The room was cold. She was cold. It was then that I realized that our assessment was based on our bias. We were not only unfair to that student, we did a great disservice to ourselves. Shortly thereafter, that incident, I decided to get out of psychology, go back to my roots in agriculture, and focus on my bias before I tried to judge another person. 9 years later, in the fall of 2002, I was coaching an under 14 girls soccer team. Had a player by the name of Beth. Beth was a difficult player, difficult to deal with, and you can see where this is going. Teenage girl, difficult to deal with. Beth had a tan backpack that she never let out of her sight. She was obsessive about this backpack. And every time I moved a drill to another area, Beth would grab the backpack and move it over. It was a minor distraction, but it was really bothering me. After several weeks of practice, I finally asked Beth, "What's with the backpack, Beth?" Beth replied, "It holds all my precious belongings. And I never know when my mom is going to tell me you have 10 minutes to pack up because we're moving to a new location." My bias nearly created a showdown between Beth, her backpack, and soccer. And Beth loves soccer. It could have been the best part of her day, and I came close to taking that away. As I started traveling domestically and internationally for our family business, I found that my bias held me back. I was quick to assess other people based on their accent, race, gender, citizenship, and anything foreign to me. Unfortunately, once my bias kicks in, my listening skills, they disengage, and so do my chances of developing a meaningful relationship. It also goes against the sage advice of my grandfather, who told me before my first business trip, if you're talking more than a customer, you're talking too much. In other words, listen. I've also been the recipient of bias from other people. In 2007, I attended an international seed conference in Antalya, Turkey. My last meeting of the day was Sergey. Sergey was from Russia, and he had requested the meeting. I told myself, come with an open mind. These meetings are like speed dating. You have 30 minutes to try to see if there's any business opportunities. Typically, the business meetings start with an introduction of the individual and whom they represent. Sergey opened the meeting quite quickly and aggressively in a loud voice. "I've been asked by my superiors to find a source of sweet corn seed. I'm told that you have sweet corn seed." It was evident that Sergey did not want to be sitting at that table with me, with an American, making such a request. I started talking about one of the most devastating battles in World War II, the Battle of Leningrad. I then talked about how 12 Russian scientists starved to death during that 870-day siege while protecting the Vavilov seed bank, one of the biggest seed banks in the world at that time. I finished with telling Sergey, imagine starving to death when surrounded by food, surrounded by all this seed. These Russian scientists were truly a dedicated group of seedsmen. Sergey, are you aware of the Vavilov seed bank and the Battle of Leningrad? Surgeon replied in a very quick manner, very proud manner, "Of course I know this history. I am Russian." The tone of our meeting changed dramatically, and we had a great discussion. This was also Sergey's last meeting as well, so we stopped and we had a beer afterwards. For the rest of the convention, when I'd see Sergey or he'd see me, we'd wave. If we had a quick moment, we would visit briefly. I still have my biased issues, and it's a daily battle. I think it'll be a daily battle for me for the rest of my life. But I can learn from my experiences and from others and strive to be a better form of myself. Thank you for listening.
Good evening. My name is Mallory Essman, and I have the best job in the world. I get the unique opportunity to tell our youth that they have potential. Everyone wants to hear that they are special and that they can do great things. I am so lucky to be part of that every single day. I'm a college and career counselor in the Nampa School District, and I am nearing a decade of working at this school that I actually attended. In fact, in total, I've spent just under half of my lifetime at Skyview High School. Fun fact, my mom works there too. Hey, Mom. And let me tell you, having your mom work around the corner from you is the best. How many people do you know whose mom still brings lunch for them as an adult? I earned my bachelor's degree from Boise State and master's from Walden University. Over the years, I have been a small piece of so many successful student stories. I've had students go to college at little or no cost. I have students admitted to medical school, PA school, law school, and so many more. Some of my students go to the Lineman College, complete workforce training through CWI, and others have gone to highly prestigious universities both inside and outside of the United States. I am grateful to have been part of even a chapter of their stories. But today, I come to you in a state of weariness. I am tired. When I first started to think about what I wanted to share with you today, I felt woefully ill-equipped to share my truth. But the reality is, if I don't stand up and share these stories, who will? For many of my students, I have answers to their questions, solutions to their problems, and we can work together to plan for a trajectory of post-secondary attainment. But for some, I am stuck. For some, I have no solutions. I have no answers. I have almost no plan for post-secondary success. My first year as a college and career advisor, I was at a FAFSA night helping students complete one of the most important forms of their lives. For many, it's the difference between settling for what they've got and pushing forward to get what they deserve. I noticed a family who appeared to be having trouble. The parents spoke only Spanish, and at the time I was ill-equipped to help them. My dear friend and coworker Gloria stepped in, and I was relieved to see that they were getting some help. About 5 minutes later, I saw that they were leaving, and my student was in tears. I asked Gloria what happened. She turned to me with anguish in her eyes and said, "No papers." I was baffled. What did she mean? Did they forget to bring their tax forms? Later, I discovered that this family was undocumented and therefore did not qualify for federal student aid, a fact my student did not know. This was my first experience with being unable to help my students. Every year since, I have had to be part of the heartbreaking scenarios like this one. Mrs. Essman, ex-college, has listed me as an international student. Can you help me fix that? No, I can't. There's nothing I can do to fix that. Mrs. Essman, can I apply for that scholarship? No, I'm afraid you can't. I have some of the most amazing students in the world. I have the special opportunity to help them shoot for the stars. But for some of them, The stars are simply out of reach. Emmanuel is a senior at my school. He's an active member of our Future Hispanic Leaders of America Club. He maintains a healthy GPA of 3.0 and is a frequent visitor to the Career Center. A few weeks ago, he came in excited. He had received his Social Security card. He was ecstatic because this meant he could do the FAFSA. Emmanuel wants to study at CWI. The next day, my colleague sat down with him to do his FAFSA. She had the devastating task of telling him that he was mistaken. He did not get a Social Security card, but rather an ITIN card, which means he can complete and pay taxes, but he is still unable to qualify for federal student aid. To which he followed up with, "Can I enlist in a military branch then to pay for my schooling?" Upon further investigation, we discovered that no, he could not. To this day, Emmanuel is still unsure as to his future plans. As of right now, he hopes to work and save up enough to pay for college out of pocket. The last student I want to share with you today is one particularly dear to me. I ask that when I share her story, you hold it sacred in your hearts, just as I do. We will call her Anna. On any given day, you can find Anna engaged in a variety of activities ranging from winning state tournaments, remember, English is her second language, founding clubs for our school, such as Poetry and Future Hispanic Leaders of America, or standing on her tippy toes as she hands balloons over the fence to the children at the daycare near our school. I first met Anna when she was in middle school. As the high school, college, and career counselor, I periodically hosted enrichment activities at our feeder middle school to inspire and engage the younger students for their adventures in high school and beyond. Anna attended every event I hosted from 6th through 8th grade. She would greet me timidly and quietly absorb all the knowledge and enrichment provided. Her 8th grade year, she drew a picture of one of her dream colleges and submitted it for a competition. She won. I still have a photo of this picture on my phone today. The more I got to know Anna, the more I admired her. Anna's family moved to the United States from Chile when she was in elementary school. She learned a new language and assimilated to a new culture while still maintaining her sacred heritage. I remember vividly the day that she came to the Career Center after discussing scholarship opportunities with a teacher. She was erroneously told she would not be able to attend college in the United States due to her immigration status. Tears fell down her cheeks as she told me of her deepest fear, to fall short of the goals set forth by her and her family. Anna is here on her mother's work visa and is currently in the process of obtaining U.S. citizenship. However, that process is both lengthy and expensive. Anna has a 4.02 cumulative GPA, is a state speech and debate champion, and just the most deserving student. She is unable to receive any federal financial aid and is excluded from most scholarship competitions due to her status. Anna and her fellow undocumented students, or as she likes to call them, students in citizenship limbo, must hustle twice as hard as their peers. And believe me, they do. Anna is the type of student who is going to make this work for her. She is going to get a degree. She is going to obtain citizenship, and we are all going to be better because of it. She has not yet reached the finish line, but she will. There is still a mountain for her to scale, but she will scale it. I simply hope that there are kind, empathetic, and supportive mentors and adults who will be there to catch her should she stumble along the climb. I said I am weary, and I still am. But if I am tired, my students are tenfold. Many of them work to support themselves, save for college, and provide necessities for their families. I only hope that they can find refuge from their weariness sooner rather than later. After all, they're only children, just kids. In Idaho, we sometimes live by a bootstrap mentality. If you work hard enough, you can do anything. And this is an important characteristic, and it's one that my students have mastered. But it is difficult to pull yourself up by your bootstraps if you don't have boots. Some of our youth are walking around this world barefoot. Please join me in helping them put some boots on.
My journey that has led me here was not the easiest, but certainly has humbled me through my experiences growing up in Tallahassee. Growing up in a single-parent household with 4 siblings, we were exposed to situations kids just shouldn't be exposed to, and by no fault of my mom. Being a single parent, she worked fast food my entire life, and she really had no time to watch me and my brothers and sisters all the time. Unfortunately, by the time I was 16 years old, I had lost all 3 of my brothers, 1 older, 2 younger, and they were removed from my home and in juvenile corrections already. That 2-year gap from 16 to 18, I felt kind of lost. Mentally, emotionally, I felt like I had no one to turn to because my family was all I knew. We were poor, and my brothers is who I had by my side all the time. So those next 2 years, I felt kind of lonely, like I didn't know where I was going. And over the next 2 years, I struggled in school. I knew I wasn't going to college. So when 18 rolled up, my senior year of high school, which was October, I felt like I didn't know what to do. And one day, a Navy recruiter showed up at the school, and he was walking around talking to kids, and I never built up the courage to approach him. I was nervous, scared, but he left, and by the end of that same school day, I pretty much told myself that's what I was doing. I knew I needed to get out of Tallahassee and leave Florida. So at the end of the school day, I skipped football practice, walked 2 miles down the road to the recruiter's office, and I walked in there, and it was the same recruiter that happened to be there. And I just walked in there and said, "I'm here to enlist." And he kind of told me, "Step back." He said, "Let's discuss some of the job options." I was like, I don't even care. Like, I need to enlist. I need to get out of here. And looking back on that, I wish I would have taken time to actually think about that. But in my mind, I told him, like, I got to get out of here. I can't be here. I need to leave Florida. So I did enlist for 5 years, and I enjoyed the 5 years in the Navy. I started my own family. I got married at the age of 19. My son was born a month after my 21st birthday. But I chose not to re-enlist after my enlistment in the Navy because in that 5-year period, I felt like my deployments kept me away from my family more than I was at home with them. And ironically enough, when I enlisted in the Navy, I ended up back in Florida in Mayport when I was trying to get away from there in the first place. So I didn't know where I was going to go. My ex-wife was from Idaho. She said, "My family lives in Idaho," and I didn't blink twice. I just said, "Let's go." Now, I was a cook in the Navy, so I had ambitions of wanting to go to culinary school when I got here in Meridian, but reality set in pretty quickly, and I knew I needed to find a job to take care of my family. So I ended up getting a job with the Department of Corrections, and 9 months after that, I was hired by the Caldwell Police Department. And I was only there for 6 years on patrol, and I promoted, and I stayed on patrol another 2 years, and then I was asked by my supervisors to go to the SRO unit, which is the school resource officers, and I was hesitant about that, and I said, sure, why not? That was in 2018, and I can tell you in those first 2 years, those first couple months that I was in the schools, it was kind of eye-opening because I was involved with different students involving their families, and then I started to see the students that were dealing with addiction, domestic violence at home, and with some of these teenagers in their own personal lives, mental health and emotional support, suicidal ideations, and I kind of took a step back because I thought back to my own childhood in high school, and I was kind of going through the same situations. So, and the more I talked to these families, it kind of opened my eyes to that I had to change my mindset, because a lot of families, or sometimes people are asking for solutions. I had to realize they didn't want me to fix their problem. They needed someone to listen to. So I had to learn to listen to what they were saying and listen to what they were really asking of me. And the following school year, around 2019, I was going through a divorce and a separation, but I also ended up adopting 2 of my nephews with my mom, also from Florida, because they were in some unfortunate situations. And I brought them up here, and they were 7 and 4, My son was about 13 at that time. So now I find myself as a single dad with 3 boys to raise. And it was a trying time. My nephews were kind of latching on to me, wanting to call me dad in the first 6 months that they were with me. But I told them out of respect for my brother that they're going to call me uncle. Like, I wasn't going to take that from their dad. And fast forward to 3 years, spring of 2022, going into summer. My son's 16. He's finishing up track going into summer. He plays EA gaming team. He's going into football workouts. He has his own car. He's pretty social. So I wasn't thinking really too much about what he had going on. My littlest one was playing soccer. He was finishing up. And then the older one was finishing baseball, and we're moving into club baseball for the summer. And those of you that have kids that play club or have played club, you know that's essentially like a full-time job. So you have practices anywhere from 5, 6 times a week. You have tournaments every weekend. And I didn't really think nothing of it, but my son's mom that summer called me and told me, you need to talk to your son. He's scared to talk to you, but he feels like you are pushing him to the side and you are spending more time with him than your nephews. And that kind of hurt deeply, because here I am at work when I'm dealing with families and kids at school, and I'm always talking to them and preaching to them about how important family is. Yet here in front of my own eyes, I can't see that my son is missing me and I'm not there. And I tell kids at school, I tell families, excuse me, that sometimes you can be there without being there. And I was doing the same thing right in front of my son. I was there, but I wasn't there. So I had to really change my focus on raising my boys and how I raised them. And I did that by not putting work before my boys. I make sure I'm there for them whenever they have anything going on. I don't care if it's sports, school, anything they have going on. I make sure I leave work and I'm there for each one of them. I may not be there the entire time because I may be at a game for 1 quarter and I got to take off and go get someone to practice. But they see my face there and they appreciate that. And this all came full circle for me with my son, as much as I talk about family, because within the last year, he had one of his own friends that he shared the story with me, that they were going through some pretty trying times in their own family. And he told them about the summer that he was feeling left out by me. And he ended up telling me, Dad, I appreciate you adopting Nate and John and bringing them up here because they needed a family to love them, and thank you for doing that. So at the end of the day, my son came around. It makes me happy to know that he values family and that he also makes sure his cousins feel loved by him, so he understands how much we appreciate family. Thank you.
The great philosopher George Goebel once asked, have you ever felt like the entire world was a tuxedo and you're a pair of brown shoes? This is my brown shoes moment. Rarely have I been involved in an assemblage where I differ so drastically from every other participant. Tonight you were privileged to hear speakers relate compelling stories of great challenges they've overcome, actions they've taken to change lives, sacrifices they've made in defense of our country, and lasting contributions to society. Sadly, you'll hear none of that from me tonight. Not because of humility, but because it wouldn't be true. I have led a blessed life. It started when I won the parent lottery. If Mike could have gone shopping at Parents R Us, I would have bought Lyle and Myrtle Olmsted. My mom was a homemaker beyond compare. My dad was a general contractor that specialized in quality custom homes. Many nights I witnessed him struggling to bid a job low enough to win the job, but high enough to make the money to support his family and the families of that small group that worked for him. He taught me the values of hard work and honesty. I have never felt a lack of love or support. I have a wonderful wife of 56 years and a loving family. No compelling story. What am I doing here tonight other than the free meal? Thank you, Greg. Actually, they wanted somebody to come that was a concerned citizen. And you'd say, well, why are you concerned? You've lived a blessed life. You haven't had the problems we've heard so many other people talk about today. But I was concerned because the values that have allowed my family to live safe and happy lives are under attack. Those values, faith, family, and freedom, are under unprecedented assault. Institutions that I believed would protect those values have actually become the aggressors. Our freedoms have eroded as our society moves further and further from the Christian Judeo values that we built our country on. Those values are faith, family, and the tenets that we are moving away from are a belief in God and the commands that we love others as ourselves and that we live a moral lifestyle. Indeed, in Galatians 6:5, it says that we're each responsible for our own conduct. Without this personal accountability, we drift into immoral behavior and social pathology. Our society is signaling decline with every possible measure. Broken families, homelessness, depression, soaring suicide rates, rampant crime, senseless violence, and a deadly drug epidemic. I'm concerned about many things. Regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, I accept that we are all created in God's image and we should live in harmony. However, I do struggle with elaborate, expensive, and sometimes compulsory corporate and university DEI programs that magnify the issue and ultimately sow dissension. I'm concerned with a federal government that lies about secure borders, crime, origin prevention and treatment of COVID, citizen surveillance, funding gain-of-function research, and the lying goes on and on because there's no accountability. Unpunished lying begets more lying. I'm concerned for the little girls who are tomboys and are now considered to be gender dysphoric. They may never grow up to be fantastic mothers because they are pressured with gender-affirming care, often comes with puberty blockers and physical mutilation. I'm concerned about a media that eschews all the principles of honest journalism. I'm concerned that the public education scores have cratered in the last 50 years compared to our international competitors. I'm concerned that the government has decreed that boys should have access to girls' bathrooms and locker rooms and participate in girls' sports. I'm concerned that the government takes better care of illegal immigrants than of our veterans. The concerns go on and on in this seemingly upside-down world. I'm concerned about many things, but I'm confident about the future. America was once the shining city on the hill, and we will be again. We know our way back to our founding principles, but it requires that we all act collectively. At the national level, we should vote wisely and rely on 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are known by my name will humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and confess of their sins, I will hear from heaven, forgive their sin, and heal their land. Locally, it's a lot easier to put feet to those prayers. As we have heard tonight, there's an abundance of opportunities to work in programs to mend broken families, rescue at-risk children, reclaim the addicts, care for the needy, and love the unloved. We must work collaboratively from a common set of values of treating others as we want to be treated and holding ourselves accountable. Respect for others' opinions is achieved largely by listening. That's why I am proud to participate in this program tonight. Preparing for this evening has been a conversion experience for me, and I ask you join me in my pledge to listen more intently to others and to seek true understanding. So let's unite, bury our differences, and make America stupendous again. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Thanks. I would like to bring all the speakers up so that we can show them our appreciation for their words. So please come up, speakers. And you can clap as loud as you want. Cheer as loud as you want.
Hey, Larry. I'm doing good. How about you?